I can see that the attendees are coming, and now we are a bunch of here, and I would like to welcome everyone. First of all, I'm going to give a short introduction of our talk today and about Sophie too. I would like to welcome everyone at Ars Boni's Mesterségem, címere Legaltech presentation. I know it's a little bit weird because it's going to be in English, but the title is in Hungarian. But what I basically said is just we are going to talk about Legaltech. And I would like to welcome everyone, and please let me introduce you shortly, Sophie Martinetz. She is a very nice woman we have met not so long time ago, and Sophie had a really remarkable international career, and you will hear her talk today. And our subject is going to be about Legaltech, how actually Sophie met first with Legaltech, how she established a firm or let's just say a whole empire working with Legaltech. And Sophie's going to shortly introduce you to the Legaltech market as well. So please hear her talk in the upcoming roughly 30 minutes. And after 35 minutes, you can state your not after, but in the meantime, you can always state your questions. And then after that, with my help and with my cooperation, we will answer all the questions what you guys have stated. And after this topic, please stay tuned as well, because after that, from 5 o'clock, we're going to continue with another Zoom meeting. And this is going to be about the future of law. That's going to be with Philip Anna from Wolters Kluwer. And please stay tuned and please listen to Sophie. So Sophie, nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you, Michelle.
We meet you virtually. I don't know how in these times we should greet each other. Yes. So my question would be, or not even a question, but like, please introduce us to your amazing international career. I have read a lot about you, and it's really remarkable what you have done and what you are doing. So can you please introduce yourself in a few sentences to our
Thank you very much. I'm totally red. I'm totally flushed because Michelle is so nice to me, introduces me. Hi, I'm Sophie. Yes, what have I done and why is it so impressive? I don't think it's so impressive, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a lawyer by training, and I'm a bit of what we call in Austria a colored dog. So basically someone who has done a lot of different things and tried to put it all together. And when you look back with a hindsight, you might say, oh, this was all set up, perfect career, because one step came after the other. But when you're in the middle of it, like myself, you're like, oh, I'm just glad I made it. And it all makes sense after a while, but the puzzle only comes out after you've done your career and you did what you did. Now, basically, I brought you something about Legaltech as well, but Michelle asked me to tell you first about what I did is, so I studied law. I don't know why I studied law, to be honest with you, but it's very good foundation for everything because contracts are about the economic reality. So I was always fond of having law as a study. Then I went and worked for the State Opera in Austria. So I was in the culture. That was very interesting because you have to organize a lot of things. And then I went on after my studies to join Bertelsmann. That's a big, it's a big company. It's an entertainment company, and I joined them to become an in-house lawyer there in Berlin, which is not in Vienna but outside of Vienna. And I did things like Pop Idol. I don't know whether you have that in Hungary, probably too. And I did that. Then I did a business school for film and television in Spain, and then I went to Bertelsmann in London. And I'm very glad that I did that. And I know it's a hard time now in terms of Corona and stuff like this, but I can only encourage you to go away and come back sooner or later, because the good thing is now I'm 40 plus. Yeah, I probably look a bit younger, but the good thing is all my other friends who stayed in Vienna since their studies, they now really have midlife crisis because they all feel like, oh my God, I've never been away. I've always been in the same area. So I spent more than 7 years outside of Austria. So I went to London then, and in London I joined a very big bank. It's Barclays Corporate Banking, one of the fifth biggest banks in the world. And I did a lot of business development there. And at the end of that, I ran a global business development team across 23 countries for Barclays Corporate, and that was really, really interesting. And then I came back to Austria, and that was just a few months before the financial crisis hit. So I started on the 1st of September. On the 15th of September, Lehman Brothers broke, and everyone, I don't know whether you remember that, because I think the audience is a bit younger than I am, but people were carrying out their boxes with all their, because they were all fired on the same day. And it's a bit like Corona style, but you were still able to go outside. It was a big crisis. A lot of people were unemployed. A lot of people were fired. It was a lot of insecurity. People took their money and brought it somewhere else or whatever they could do with that. And at the time I was in a big bank in Austria as well. And then I founded my own company. And I think an interesting thing, that's just a personal insight, because you asked me to say something personal. I had some investors that I wanted to get into my company. And I remember I was pregnant with my second child, and I was 1 week before the birth date of my second child. And my final investor signed the contract with me just a week before I gave birth to my second child. So I don't get me wrong. I don't say it's all only excuses, but I think having children and having family is a very important part, because otherwise you become crazy. Yeah, you just work. And I think the important thing is, yes, there are certain limitations, and there are certain people who think women are strange, and they think family is strange, and investors like this. But how shall I say? Don't ask for permission, just ask for forgiveness. Yeah, just go ahead. And I remember I had a belly like this, and I thought he probably hasn't seen it because I wore something black, but he did see it, and he still gave me his money. Anyway, so what we did is then, over the last 7 years, I also run a law firm, but I also have, over the last 5 years, 5 years ago, I founded Future Law, and this is why I may sit here. And with Future Law, we just deal with legal tech and digitalization of the law. So we do not deal with questions, like with legal questions of digitalization, but with digitalization of law. So what does that mean? And I've got some slides for that, Michelle, though.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is my background. Meantime, I have 3 children, and I'm still married to the same person. And I can only tell you, try to get things done, and then focus on your work as well. But don't leave out the family thing, because I see a lot of intelligent young people, and they miss out on everything, and they just work. Don't do this. Anyway, so now I share my presentation with you. This is about legal tech. Sorry, if there are any questions, just tell me. Good. So sorry, the slide is not.
Yes, please, everyone, feel free. The chat box is always open, so please state your questions, because now we're getting into it.
Can you see it? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
So get started with legal tech. Now, what does legal tech mean? If you're a student, it's really difficult to understand what legal tech means, I find, unless you work together with some data, you have some databases, and you work with LexisNexis or other, where you can look up laws and decisions, and probably court rulings as well. So this is a part of legal tech. But what else can legal tech be? I show you here a bit of a reality check and the legal tech Gartner's curve. Now, the Gartner's curve, Gartner specialized in a business. What they do is they rate technology, and they also understand technology, and they always give an estimation on how relevant it is and how advanced it is. Do you know, Michelle, do you know the Gartner's hype curve? Good, then I explain it. If you don't know it, then everyone else will not know it. Good. Yeah. So what you can see is on the bottom left here, yeah, you can see the innovation trigger. Now, what happens is with legal tech, about 5 years ago, even in Austria, yeah, and maybe Austria is similar to Hungary, even in Austria, people started talking about digitalization in law. At that time, I thought, cool, we do the first thing. And we did an event about who's afraid of artificial intelligence together with IBM. So this was this innovation trigger. And what happened then, because of people like myself, obviously, there was a big hype. Now in the hype curve, you can see it going up. Then on the top of it, where you can see digital ethics at the moment, right? You are on the peak, the hype is perfect. I would say we are there, we are already past this. And then it goes down again. And it goes down after the peak into the thought of disillusionment. So all of a sudden you realized, oh, it's great to have blockchain, but who needs blockchain, right? What do we really do with it? And then it goes up again. It goes up the slope of enlightenment. So people now understand where can we use it. People start using it, and it goes to the plateau of productivity. Now, the plateau of productivity means that you can really use a technology if you're not a freak, right? So, and if you have a look at that now, where are we in reality in terms of legal tech? 2020, legal Gartner decided for the first time to have a legal tech curve. So for the last 10 years, there was none on that. But now legal tech became so important that they even created worldwide a legal tech curve in Gartner's group, which means Gartner only does anything for business and for money. And why do they do that? Because they now see that a lot of money is going into legal tech. We can see every week at least one investment of 10 million plus into a legal tech startup across Europe. That just means there's a lot of investment and a lot of money flowing into this market. And we can also see big players like Thomson Reuters or Wolters Kluwer, someone who will talk after me about the future of law. You can see they move into this market as well. They buy some of the startups as well, and they broaden the market even further. So, for example, I personally think in the future of law, I think publishing companies like Wolters Kluwer are actually going to be the biggest competitors of lawyers in the future, because they provide a lot of knowledge. And what they do in the next step, you can see already, is they target directly the corporates and the general counsels, for example, with products without involving the lawyers anymore. Now, what you can see here is on this hype curve, you can see, for example, everyone talks about legal chatbots, but you can see the innovation trigger. It's not on the hype curve at the very bottom. It's not on the top, because it's so difficult to have a proper legal chatbot built that this one is far away from the plateau of performance. Where we do see is though text analysis, and you can see also that each technology has a little color on it. If you have it in white, it means that it is already in less than 2 years applicable, so you can use it. Light blue means 2 to 5 years, and dark blue means 5 to 10 years. So if you see that, you can see text analysis, predictive analytics, and enterprise legal management. All these things and contract lifecycle management can be already used. You can actually buy that as a standard solution now. And if you do that, you will be well served with good solutions in terms of legal tech. If you have other legal techs like blockchain, can you see that? That's on the bottom, on the throw of disillusionment. Everyone talked about blockchain for the last 4 years. It's the biggest hype ever, but nobody knows where to use it. And this is the question, whether a technology will even come out of this valley and get up. You can see the other ones as well. Here you have explainable AI. This is, I think, a very, very important thing especially for the legal sector, because the artificial intelligence that is explainable is so crucial for lawyers and for people who studied law as well and work as general counsels, because lawyers need to understand how an artificial intelligence tool takes a decision. So it's all about criteria. What we have at the moment is all black box solutions. So some input is put in, and then it says this is a drug dealer, right? It has an assumption, but we don't know what happened in the middle, and we don't know where the data come from, and all of these different things. So I'm happy for Michelle to send out the slides as well if you want to. On this list, you can see, where different technologies stand. Now, this is also very nice, but I think the important thing is, what is the reality check? We talk about blockchain, artificial intelligence, blah, blah, blah. But my experience is, and I love this picture, is legal tech is a bit about this wheel, right? But we do work already, and you see these guys and they say, no, we are too busy. No, thank you. We can't really do anything because they are too busy. And look at their wheels. The wheels are square. Yes, they do work. And yes, we do work at the moment. But the reality is it would work much better with other tools. But we are just so super busy. So we don't even have time to change the wheels. And I think this is very good. It's about our mindset. Because let's be realistic, lawyers do work and they have been working for the last 1,000 years, right? They are very clever people. They're very organized. And whatever the end result is, it needs to be perfect. The way how we get to this perfect result is never in question because we never had time to think about it. But this is the big challenge that legal tech and digitalization is now posing on us. We call it unbundling. So that means what you do in the automotive sector, for example, did you really think about, okay, how do I get from one step to the other to finally have a perfect result? And this is totally new to the industry. And why is this coming? Because a lot of clients, especially, put more and more pressure on budgets. In the past, I know you never been in this era, in this past, and me neither. But there was a past when a lawyer could charge anything, and corporates would just buy it, pay it. Nowadays, these things changed. There is no such thing as I just pay you without even listening at it or looking at it. People really want to know what did you do, how did you set up the work, and they are not willing to pay any billable hours. So this is the reason why we need to change the square to a round wheel going forward. But this needs a mind change, and we see it over the last 5 years that is quite slow. And why is it? Because the business is still really good. So what I wanted to give you now in the next one is that's a concept that I want you to take away for legal tech. Because a lot of people say, what can I do with legal tech? Now I understand that some of you are already working in the legal industry, in whatever categories you work in. Even if you're a student though, um, this concept, I think, is something that you can take away for legal tech because I'm not going to explain to you what artificial intelligence can do or not, because this is far too slow for this. I mean, we don't have enough time for that today. But what I want to show you is whenever you want to change your mindset, and this is really important because legal tech and digitalization is not about the tools that you buy. It's really about defining the problem that you have and finding a solution for that. And this is the most important things because I come sometimes to companies and they show me, look, I just bought this tool for 500,000 euros. And I say, great, which problem does it solve? And they tell me, oh, we actually don't know. The IT team, they looked for it and they said it's a really good tool. And I say, yeah, it's a really good tool, but can you work with it? And they never start working with it because it doesn't solve their problem. It's a great tool, but not for them. And they've spent a lot of money on it because they never took the time to change their mindset and think about what is my problem. So what we usually say, it's a strategic issue. Um, and what you can see on this map here is a concept on how you can analyze your work and also as a student and start thinking about where can you use legal tech. And it's about value and complexity and how often you do something. So if you have a look on the very bottom left, this is activities that you do in your job that are not very complex and that are not very often or start to become often. Usually team meetings are like this. Yeah, get rid of these things. On the bottom left, you have, on the top left, you have something that is very complex and you rarely do it. This is something that you shouldn't do because you're not a specialized in it. You should give it to someone else. So for example, if you're a lawyer and you're a M&A lawyer and someone comes about labor law to you, you just give it to a colleague and say, just do it because you're the expert in it. If you move to the top right, then for in-house lawyer, that's where you should work. This is very frequent and complex work. This is what lawyers are made for because it's complex and you can build up a specialization in it because you see it very often. And everything on the bottom right that you see that's very frequent and not very complex, that's ideal for legal tech and digitalization. But the reality is at the moment that this work is usually done on the bottom right, is done by associates, by juniors, by paralegals, and by other people. And this is where you now see a big push for legal tech. I just wanted to show you this concept because a lot of people ask me, yes, what can you do in terms of legal tech? And I can show you a slide what categories there are. But in reality, the important thing is that you need to find out what is my work, what do I do, right? And where could I use legal tech? But the question, which legal tech tool to use, is the second question. Good. This was all about me and legal tech. This is what I've been doing. And I'm open to question. Oops, stop it.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That was really interesting because what we hear from, or like, let's just say those who don't work in legal tech, is that we see the complete other way. That like, okay, softwares, let's come softwares and they're going to solve everything. We just buy them. We have no idea. That's like so valid or like so legit that like really you need to first see, you know, what was first, the egg or the chicken. So you have to see first that we have a problem which we should buy a software and not a software that should solve whatever kind of problem, if there is even a problem.
Yes. But you know, I like it because this gives us a lot of business. Because to be honest with you, if people buy software and don't know their problem, you need to start from the very beginning. It's much cleverer to start at the very beginning and then buy a software, but it's not so sexy. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sure. And I think that you know, companies are sometimes, or law firms, not just necessarily companies, are spending tremendous amount of money, and then they just don't utilize it in such a way that can actually pay off later. And that's why it kind of like I think it's like a domino effect that companies will start to say, oh wait, we're not going to invest because it's just too much money.
Yeah, but I think about investment, there's two things to it. One side is investing in a law firm is very difficult because you have a partner level. On a partner level, the real important KPI, so the key performance indicator, in order to measure how successful a law firm is always the profit per partner. So if you have profit per partner, it is actually very difficult, to build up a balance sheet. So if you if you say I want to invest into some legal tech, that doesn't mean that you necessarily invest like a corporate. It just means that the profit per partner is less and smaller without the investment. So if all of the guys are driven, and ladies are driven, by taking out as much cash as possible, so profit per partner, an investment will always make it smaller, and they will not like the investment. So the investment needs to be so super perfect. By the time you find it, you lost the solution and you will never find it. That's the reality. Yeah. Do you know what I mean in terms of so I think it's really important. I think that this is a very good example that you put, but that's in the reality what we see a lot of cases. Wait, there's a question. What steps should one take after graduating from law school in order to be able to work international as a lawyer? Wait, what is the most important skill for a lawyer that is sought for in the international field? Oh, very difficult. I think first thing is, if you want to graduate from law school, I mean, we have a lot of discussions with people at university because, you know, the market always says, people at university don't learn enough and they're not exactly what we need for in the market, blah, blah, blah. I personally think the most important thing is coming out of law school is that you're a really good lawyer, because the world gets more and more complex. And if you think about what I showed you in terms of the metrics, what kind of work will you do when you become a lawyer? You will obviously not do the work in the first place that is very complex because you need to learn. But at the end, this is your goal. You want to do complex, interesting stuff, right? So you need to be well prepared for that, I personally think. Additional to that, everyone at the moment really wants to have people who are legal tech and, you know, have probably studied also IT. The reality that I see is you need to be very careful which company you want to join and which law firm, because a lot of law firms like to have it, but they can't offer you any work in terms of that because they're not really digitalized the way you would expect it from their marketings. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but it's just the reality. So I think what I personally think, I think it is really important to understand digitalization. And what I can urge you is 2 or 3 things that would be just my advice for you. First of all, try to just build your own website or something like this before you finish your law school. So I would call it like it's like a business card, right? But it's a digital business card. That's not rocket science, but you start thinking about content, process, customer experience, right? And customer experience, so the so-called UX experience, is what you can see on Google. Google just has one line and it says, type in your question. It sounds so easy, but it's perfect, right? But if you've never tried to do something like this, it's very difficult to understand in terms of digitalization what is important for the user. If you want to have a nice website, at least you start thinking about it. And the other thing is what you really think about it is, what do you need for a site like this? You need content, you need probably something humorous, you need you need nice pictures. All of this will force you to think different than you do in law. And I personally think, I know that's just a tedious tip that I give you. Try to do that, because I think your mindsets will change a bit. Other than that, I think it's good to understand. Um, I'm not saying you need to code, forget it. Yeah. But I personally think at university, one should study process management, because
Oh, yeah.
I can show you something. I mean, I can show it because why, Michelle, you say, yeah, I think if you think if you're still at university, you don't know what it is really like to work in a law firm, right? And
Yeah.
you don't know what it's like in a general counsel or in a ministry of justice. But I think it's really about analyzing your own work as well. If you have to prepare, for example, for a joint teamwork presentation, if you do that, take a piece of paper and just write down what steps did you have to take to get to this final work, right? And what it will give you is an additional skill, yeah, to think in a way of digitalization, because digitalization is a lot about understanding client value and understanding how processes work and how you can improve them. I know it's totally unsexy, sorry for that, but I like it actually. I think it's very sexy, but a lot of people think it's unsexy. Um, but I think what you can also do is, I would recommend is work for work for pro bono for a company and help something in a digital way. So, for example, setting up websites or or social media or something like this, because I think it forces you to think on the user experience. And this is what I can see that a lot of law firms are not able to do. They are very focused on the client's perspective and how they can add value in terms of solving a problem. But in terms of adding value in terms of digital ways, it's very difficult for them to think about that. Yeah.
Yes,
Does it
exactly.
does it make a bit sense? Yeah.
Yes,
But I think,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think most of us experience too, or are still experiencing, that law school is basically really black or white. So we either
yeah,
study this subject or that subject, but you're kind of motivating us and all the attendees and everyone to have like kind of a wider as well as interest and as well as kind of like a knowledge. So we are going to be prepared for, let's just say, the 21st century,
yeah,
because let's confess, all law
yeah,
schools, I think
yeah,
all law schools and law firms are really conservative in that sense,
yes,
or not willing to kind of change to a more wider aspect. Because let's just say when we were in law school, we thought, okay, I have to learn the basics and then that's all. But actually, you're now inspiring us to learn actually informatics, digitalization, technologies, or have like an
yeah.
open mind to
But I
all
think
of them.
it's very important though, because I think, when I was young, I was also very stressed to be successful and really make the right choice, right? People always say, oh, we need these hybrid people and they're half IT and they're half law and so on.
Yeah.
And I personally think that's all bullshit. Sorry. Yeah. Because you can't have it all, because nobody pays you the money for that to take. If you really take 2 studies, I mean, either you're super clever and it just takes you 3 years or 4 years, but it's usually not the reality. But a lot of law firms cannot give you the jobs that you afterwards looking for, because either in the law area or in the IT area you will be disappointed because the law firms are not there yet that they can offer you the jobs. So I personally think for law firms it's far more important to have a lawyer who can really, that's why I said these little things like, create your own website or something like this, very specific. You don't need to study IT. It's really about trying to get into the mindset and put it onto your, also onto your CV, because they need lawyers who are different and think a bit different. And this will push the change much quicker than looking for people who studied IT and project management and law, and they were excellent in everything. Yeah. So I just want to manage your expectations as well, because I think there are no jobs, maybe with fresh fields, right? Maybe, yeah, but only a few as well, yeah, where you have it all. But may I just say something, Michelle, to that one? Just is, for example, fresh fields, they have and I like fresh fields a lot. I don't get paid for that. I don't want to make advertising for them. But what they have is they have their own lab with just IT people in Berlin, and the lawyers fly there, right? And then they tell them, my client has this problem. Can we help him? Right? And then the IT guys and the lawyers sit down together. And what the client's problem usually is, and they get money for that, is that the client has a problem in the workflow. That means, for example, let's take Volkswagen, right? They receive 300,000 or more emails and claims for their, for their diesel things, right? If you're on the other side at Volkswagen, you receive 300,000 claims, right? And you need to deal with them as a general counsel. And then they also go to court. Now, this is a question not of the content. Are people eligible to get some money or not? It is actually about the workflow to manage to read 300,000 claims. It's just not possible anymore. So the automation is what these lawyers, for example, go to with the IT guys in Berlin in their lab, and then they try to find a clever way in terms of digitalization to digitalize the whole workflow to make it easier, because nobody can read 300,000 claims. Yeah. So how can you make sure that we analyze them and we put them into different cupboards, right? There's one cupboard, and that's the A, B, C, D, E, and you cluster them, and then you can do something with it. But this is what they do. But they need lawyers who can think like this. Yeah. Not like lawyers who just want to read the content. And I think that's what I meant with this term. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, and you mentioned in your presentation as well, so that like this way lawyers or junior lawyers or even even interns or paralegals can start to really actually work with legal, because I think many of us experience that we are doing majority in our working time administrative job or jobs which can be or tasks which can be easily done by a computer or by something which can be automated. So I find this really interesting. Sophie, let me please state you a question about your activity with future law, because because I can see that what was the main idea behind establishing future law. So how does future law or Seinfeld professionals or your whole job or everything just so what was your whole idea behind it? Like,
I had this big master plan to take over the world. Right. Now, being a bit older now, I thought, okay, it's only Austria. It's still big enough. Anyway, but what we had is, I founded a company. It's called Seinfeld. And Seinfeld is basically our company where we have everything. And then we have different brands according to that. So one is Northcote. This is where we have, it's like a network of innovative network of lawyers, where we give them a modern way of working. Then we also have Future Law, and with Future Law we do basically 4 things, and that came out of the time as well. So I should say, yes, I have had this big plan, and we're planning this and this and this and this, but all of this really grew. And what we did is, first of all, I took the opportunity when I created the first event. I thought, wow, even in Austria is a very conservative, very patriarchal, very traditional country, right? But I thought, cool, even in Austria there's some digitalization. So what can we do with it? And the first thing we did is actually was creating some awareness. Now, with the hindsight, we definitely created also a market, because we went in with events. We created in the first year of our foundation the first Legaltech conference. When I think back now, I'm like, how crazy were we, right? Within 4 months, we set up a conference for 300 people, which is a lot in Austria. But it's all about, so that was all about technology. How can you use legal tech? How work that, for example, work blockchain and land registry? How can you find a legal tech strategy? How can you use different things? And if I now look back 4 years, I feel like, wow, what were the topics that we were discussing? What is artificial intelligence? Very sweet, right? But this created obviously a bit of buzz. So we were part of this hype curve. We've been doing this now 5 years, and we had the fourth Legal Tech conference last week, and we had about 900 attendees. So you can see the market grew, and people in Austria are really interested. It also happens because of Corona, because obviously it's very difficult at home to print out a contract and do a signature on it, then take a picture, send it back. Yeah, you laugh, but it's that's the reality of a
it's
lot
really
of
like that.
companies. Yes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden people said, oh, how about digital signature? And it's one of my favorite ones, the digital signature. It's such a quick win. So if wherever you work, look at how digital signature works. That would be a good tip. Start using digital signature tools. It's usually free of charge. You probably can sign 5 things yourself, right? So whenever you have to sign something, have a look what player you want to have, something like EverSign or DocuSign. You just get a free account, right? And just use that. You will see people will be amazed. They're like, wow, this person is so digitalized. It's so modern, right? But it also solves a big issue. So one thing we're doing is events, creating a market awareness. We have a lot of studies. So we're a bit of a competence center. What we also do is we do innovation management. So this is about helping companies and law firms really changing their mindset and understanding where will this journey lead us to. Because it's very difficult, especially in a partner organization, and especially if you earn a lot of money, yeah, to say legal tech is the most important thing. It's not.
Yeah.
But in 5 years' time, it will be much, much more important than it is now. And if you're prepared, then it's easy for you to adapt it. But if you have no clue, it will be quite difficult for people in terms of the mindset. So what we do, for example, is we do for the biggest law firms in Austria, we do the Legal Tech Hub Vienna. We have, for example, we do white papers. We have just managed to get some changes through in terms of cloud usage for lawyers, because it was forbidden for Austrian cloud use for Austrian lawyers to use the cloud. We've been able, together with the Bar of Austria, to change that now, which is cool. We also run an acceleration program with startups from all over the world. So we bring them all together with the law firms, and they have projects and they run it together, and they learn from each other. So the law firms learn from the startups how to deal with ambiguity, things that don't work quite well. How can you be more innovative? But they also learn, and the startups learn from the clients. What do they need? What's the feedback, and so on. So I like that. Then what we also do is advisory. That came actually on top of everything, because people obviously saw that we know what we're talking about. So we help general counsels, especially general counsels, to analyze their own needs, get their digital strategy together or their whole strategy together, and then help them choosing the right tool and implement it as well. I like it. That's very good. So that's what we do. And the fourth thing is we do a lot about next generation. So for example, we just gave away the Next Generation Award. So we're looking for the best bachelor, PhD, all these works, and we try to find the best people then in Austria or in the next countries that are relevant for legal tech and digitalization in law. So this is what I do. So it's not that great, but it is quite good.
Oh, don't be so humble. But I think this is actually something which I think most of the attendees are Hungarians, which I have to confess, don't experience your mindset. And one of our attendees actually highlighted that too, that like your insights and your mindset is just so revolutionary. But on this, really for us, I think this is really new, because what we learn in university and what we experience in working with law firms as junior lawyers or even as an intern, it is quite conservative, and we're just not there yet. And actually, we got a question regarding this topic, more or less. And I would like to state that, and this is going to be our last question and answer at the same time. Is there a negative bias against law students or lawyers coming from Central and Eastern Europe in favor of Western Europeans? By negative bias, I mean not enough work experience, education, lack of critical thinking, etc. I think the
the answer is no, right? I think the issue with law is that the law is national, right? That is the biggest disadvantage. So what we can see is obviously in Austria, you're only allowed to practice actually Austrian law, or as a European lawyer, you are allowed to practice European law according to Austrian standards, blah, blah, blah. So this is all very difficult because it's very territorial. Honestly, I know very few people only, for example, who come from France and really make it as a lawyer in Austria, for example, right? So I think this is this territorial system works quite well. I think there is some exceptions, but I'm not an expert in this. I just tell you what I can see is basically if you have a UK or so an Anglo-American background, it's much easier because a lot of things are Anglo-Saxon, right? And there's always a connection for that. The second thing is what we can see in Austria, though, and I don't know with the other countries, but in Austria, sometimes we are seen still as a hub to CEE. And we have a lot of big law firms who are actually looking for people who can be like an intermediate as well, right? So having people who sit in Austria, but they also work very well with Bulgarian lawyers, for example, right? So I think in Vienna or in Austria itself, they are more open-minded, right? To have people from different jurisdictions because we reach out. But the reality is the law is very tight. What I can see though in terms of legal tech, if I think about, for example, Wolf Theis, it's the biggest law firm in Austria, I think still. For example, they have 3 people who work in legal tech and they're all lawyers, but they're all not Austrian lawyers. And they do not work in terms of legal questions anymore. They work in terms of legal tech, right? I think there is a difference. So for example, I think with Schönherr, they have 2 people who used to be lawyers, and they both come from the CEE, and they now work just on legal tech. And I think people are actually very appreciated. And I think nobody says they have less work experience or anything like this. And what I can see also, for example, we have a professor, his name is Nikolaus Forgo, for example. He runs the Innovation and Digitalization Department at the University of Law in Vienna, right? And he deals a lot. He deals a lot with data compliance, and so he has a lot of work in terms of legal questions for digitalization. So he works with, I don't know, the Googles and all of this world, and he has a lot of people from all over CEE as well working in his department because it's international questions and it's not bound to Austrian solutions. Does that answer your question? Whoever asked the question? Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is quite a valid answer. Actually, we are aware of Professor Forgo's activity because actually in the we saw at the page of University of Vienna that he had lots and lots of presentations. So I really recommend it for the attendees as well. And
he's very cool. He's very funny. But I think
even more
about what I just said is what I just think in terms of just prejudice, because you say, is there any negative bias? I think a positive bias is actually, I think if you say Central and Eastern Europe, right? I think there is a bias that people from Central and Eastern Europe are always very eager to work hard, actually. So I think that's a good thing. So for example, if someone comes from the UK, you say, yeah, he's from the UK. Yeah. But if someone comes from CEE, you're like, oh, they really want to achieve something because it's a very different language. You know, you can't assume that anyone speaks your language in Austria. So you either have to learn German or English. And this is 2 things that is an extra effort because if you come from the UK, you speak English. So I think in general, people are actually, think, oh, that's good. And we have a lot of headquarters like from big banks like Bank Austria. So that's UniCredit, for example. And they have also a lot of CEE countries or the RBI they look for people who sometimes work in Bratislava, but they join Vienna as well.
Yes. I think we can all agree on that. I think now we're kind of living in a globalized world where this should not be a problem. And I think all of us just should have the guts or the motivation to do it. and it's gonna work out. So I myself work in Vienna too. So I think that it's just
I didn't know
all
that,
possible. Really? It's all possible. You just have to have the guts, I think. Sophie, thank you so much. This was such a nice short time with you. We could talk, I think, tremendous more time about Legaltech and everything, but unfortunately our time is soon up. But I would really appreciate if you would send me per email your slides, and then the attendees that will reach the attendees. And I would really thank you for the questions you have stated, and I hope that everyone will stay tuned after that too. And thank you very much for all of your attention. And you can see in the chat box. If you want to reach out Sophie, then you can see in the chat box Sophie's email. And please stay tuned, because now our next event is going to be from 5 o'clock, which is going to be about, I'm just going to tell you, Sophie, because it's Hungarian, the future of lawyers. With Fülöpön, a jövő jogász, ami lesz velünk a járvány után címmel. And you can see that in the chat box, but if you have already registered, then you will see it in the email. So thank you very much, Sophie. And
thank you. Namaste. Have a lovely evening, and give Wolterts Clue a hard time, because they are the big competitors of the lawyers. No, it's not true, but sort of. Have a nice day. Bye, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye, Sophie.